All right, we'll go one more minute and then we'll get started. If we just let you in from the waiting room, if you wouldn't mind scanning that QR code with your phone and just registering your attendance today. It's just for us, just so we know who is here for our sessions. We would greatly appreciate that. That is just fine, Candy. Don't worry about that. Not a problem. All right, it is 12:03, so we will, oh, thank you, Christy. There's the bit.ly link for you, Candy. I am watching the chat right now, but I probably won't once we get started. So Christy is here as my co-host, and she'll be monitoring the chat. If you guys drop anything in there and try to respond in case I don't see it. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I can work all the things today. Oh my goodness. It feels like a Monday suddenly. Okay, well, welcome to our next to last Lunch and Learn. My name is Rory Hodges. I am an early childhood specialist at the State Department. Been here for about a year and a half. Enjoyed about 15 years in the classroom teaching pre-K and third grade and absolutely loved that. Transitioned here, like I said, about a year and a half ago. And it's been a very big change, but have finally found my footing again and absolutely love this side of teaching and enjoy sharing things with other educators and just helping to make life a little better for early childhood teachers, hopefully. So if you don't mind, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, drop in your grade level, subject you teach, anything you want to tell us about yourself. Maybe some cool thing that you want us to know about you, or you don't have to at all. That's completely up to you. But I just wanted to welcome you to today's Lunch and Learn. So hopefully you're eating your lunch and enjoying that. If I grab a drink every once in a while, forgive me. My throat does get a little dry when I talk. So, all right, we are going to try very hard. We're going to start off with a poll question. It's on the screen, but you don't need to answer in the chat. I'm actually going to try to work the poll, and if it doesn't work, we'll go back to the chat. Let me drop that in real fast. And I would just kind of like to get us started knowing where you're at. So we're going to rate your communication confidence. And Christy, tell me if that's showing up. Is the poll showing on the screen? Okay, yes, I see people answering. Wonderful. Yay me. It's my first win for the day. That's good. All right, I'll leave that open for just a moment and just kind of tell us where you're at. How do you feel about your communication confidence with your classroom parents? How many do we have? How many do we have in attendance? Can one of you
13.
see that? Okay.
There's several from the agency though, so.
Yes, I see that. Okay. Well, 2 more.
And a couple more have just arrived, so I'm adding them.
I see that. Okay, great. All right, we'll leave it up for just a moment. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And so there's what we've got, which is kind of what I might have suspected. Everybody kind of in the middle. Nobody completely confident. Thankfully, nobody says they're avoiding parent interactions whenever possible. But I know that happens sometimes. So hopefully today you will get a strategy or two that will kind of increase that confidence level for you. So let me get our poll off there. All right, just make sure that there's the poll gone, ladies. It's the first time I've done a poll on screen, so I just want to make sure it's not. Okay, great. All right, so here is what we are going to cover today. We're going to look at understanding just what modern parents today expect from teachers. And it's probably very different maybe from what you experienced when you were a student, because things have changed over the years. We're going to talk about some essential communication principles, work through some strategies with some different scenarios in some very brief breakout rooms, talk about digital tools and navigating digital communication, because that is such a huge, huge aspect of teaching today, honestly, overall. And kind of end with talking about building partnerships, and then maybe some action planning for moving forward for you to maybe make it a better year for you today. So, I mean, for this year. All right. So let's just start off. Why does this communication even matter? There's a lot of reasons. I feel like, and you might agree, that parent communication has gotten a lot more complex in the past few years. Parents are more involved than ever before. They often want immediate access to information about their child. They want and sometimes require regular updates, and they're communicating through multiple channels: email, text, apps, phone calls, and sometimes all of the things I just listed for the very same issue all at one time. They sometimes bombard us from everywhere, trying to get the quickest response that they possibly can. So we also have very unique family structures and expectations these days. Some parents want daily updates, others are okay with monthly, some are comfortable with technology, some still want a phone call, and some still defer to the teacher as the expert, whereas other parents see themselves as equal partners or even the expert, and maybe even want the teacher to defer to them. So it's varied, very much so, more than it used to be, I believe. So let's talk about mistakes. You're pressed for time. You got 25 or 30 students, maybe more, hopefully less, maybe more. They'll all have their own family dynamics. Parents sometimes have multiple children across different teachers and schools. But here's why it's worth getting it right. If communication breaks down, relationships break down. And when relationships break down, our students suffer. So research just consistently shows that positive homeschool partnerships impact student achievement, behavior, and just overall well-being, not necessarily just for the students, but the parents and for you as well. So effective communication does take a lot of intentional effort, but I feel like it's one of the highest impact investments you can honestly make in your students' success. So let's talk a little bit more about what modern parents expect, what parents today want. I was in the classroom for a little over 15 years. I feel like there's three main things that parents really want or require. First of all, they want immediate access to everything. Our immediate access world has created that. Very much like our students, who we get frustrated at because they want that instant gratification. Parents sometimes require that too and want that. So they want immediate access, which doesn't mean you necessarily need to respond to an email at 11 o'clock at night, but some expect that. But they do expect a relatively quick response to their concerns. They want regular updates on progress, and they want transparency about what's happening. So here's something for you to think about. Parents can now track their Amazon package or any other thing that they're waiting on in real time, get instant notifications. They can find out if their teenager has a credit card, what they spent immediately. But what if they have to wait for weeks to hear about how their child's doing in school? So that disconnect, in the way our world is so connected, that disconnect obviously creates a lot of anxiety for parents and can create communication issues. So let's see. So they want personalized information. Generic newsletters that we all create are nice. You might even have one that comes with your curriculum that is ready to just copy and send out, which is still helpful. That's still good. But parents really want specific details about their child. They want to know that you see their child as an individual. They want to know that you understand their child's unique learning needs, and that you recognize their child's strengths and challenges, not just generic, this is what we're doing. They also want a partnership approach most of the time. This is probably the biggest shift from previous generations. Many of today's parents just don't want to be informed. They actually want input on their child's education. They want to collaborate on solutions when problems arise in the classroom, and they want to be respected for their knowledge of their child. And sometimes that some of you might be cringing at that, and I totally get that. But here's what you need to remember. Most parents aren't trying to make your life difficult. It feels that way sometimes. They're trying to be good parents in a world that's constantly telling them, get more involved in your child's education. So they do that, and sometimes it seems overwhelming for teachers. The key to learning how to channel that involvement, the key is learning how to channel that involvement into more productive ways. And that's what we're going to talk about next. Hello, CLSD crew. I see you. I see my friends. All right, let's talk about communication foundations, kind of 4 pillars of effective communication, if you will. Again, I'm trying to work 3 different screens here and being very unsuccessful. I think whether it's parents, students, colleagues, really effective communication kind of rests on 4 pillars, kind of like a communication foundation. So we have to build that strong foundation. The first pillar, I feel like, is clarity. That means using clear, jargon-free language, not always using our teacher acronyms and explaining what in a way that the parents can understand. So if you were to say Johnny is struggling with phonemic awareness, most parents are going to hear Johnny can't read, and the teacher's going to use big words to make it sound even worse than it is. So instead, break it down. Maybe Johnny is working on hearing individual sounds in words, which is an important step in learning to read. The parent's going to understand and have something they can work with on that. Clarity also means being specific. Instead of just Sarah had a difficult day, which is pretty vague, maybe Sarah had trouble focusing in math today and needed lots of reminders to stay on task. So now parents have concrete details that they can understand and actually act upon when they talk with Sarah when she gets home. Let's talk about consistency. That's the second pillar. It means having a regular communication schedule that parents can count on. It means your messaging is consistent across all platforms, which is a pretty big deal right now with all the ways we have that we can communicate. So make sure if your newsletter says something that you don't say something different in an email. Make sure everything is consistent. And consistency also means following through on any commitments you make. If you tell a parent, I'm going to call you back tomorrow, I'm going to get with you next Friday, and we're going to work on this, then follow through and do that. That will create a sense of trust, definitely, with parents. Third pillar, I feel like, is compassion. Means trying to understand different perspectives. When a parent seems really angry, they might actually be scared or frustrated because they don't understand something. When they seem very demanding, they might actually feel very helpless. Compassion just simply means using empathy in your tone and showing that you understand a certain thing about their child, who to them is the absolute most important person in their world. And they want to know that you understand that and you see that. And then our fourth pillar is collaboration, which is also a pretty big one. Means creating two-way dialogue rather than just a one-way information delivery system. You're not just lecturing to the parent. Means involving parents in problem solving instead of just informing them about the problems. And of course, showing respect for their knowledge of their child, which is a pretty big deal these days. So think about your current communication practices. And maybe drop in the chat if you don't mind. Drop in the chat. Out of clarity, consistency, compassion, and collaboration, which pillar do you feel like right now is your strongest? And which one do you feel like you need the most work on? Let's just kind of see how everybody feels about that. If you don't mind dropping something into the chat, ladies. I keep saying ladies. I haven't looked to see if we have any gentlemen on here, but I think it's all ladies. Anybody want to chime in on that one? I will share with you. I feel like for me, when I was in the classroom, I think consistency and probably compassion were maybe my strong points. And I think collaboration might have been difficult for me because I was raised in that era where the teacher was more in control and didn't always collaborate with parents. So
We have one that's saying collaboration is her strongest
oh,
area.
yeah, good for you. Is it Tara? Is that how it's
Yes.
spelled a little differently, but I think
Yeah.
it's just Tara. Good for you,
And
Tara, because that's
Laura
definitely
is
my weak
saying,
one.
are you able to see messages?
Yes, I am now.
Okay.
Yes, they're staying up there, but that's fine. Consistency for Laura. I love that. Yes. Ah, okay. Candy saying she feels like she falls short on empathy. Okay, I can understand that. Yep, I have done that, kind of overthink or overread what the parent has said. Oh, lots of them coming in. Great. Consistent with weekly newsletters and follow up with details and emails for trips and parties. I love that. Okay. Regina says her collaboration is weak due to language barrier. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Lisa, I love this. Lisa is our science person here in the office. She said Monica had to deal with me as a teacher to her kids. Monica, what would you pick as her strongest? Because she doesn't know where she stands. It feels like she could be better on all of it. And Monica, let's see. Monica said, I feel my strength is compassion. I do feel like clarity and collaboration are harder. All right, Monica, you got to tell us what Lisa's strength was. Diane says compassion is my strongest. I love that. I love that. That goes a long way. Absolutely. And then Valerie says this past year, I've learned to ask parents if they see a behavior at home. Oh, love that. Yes. That communication with parents opens the door for more information, helps you understand their perspective. Yes, absolutely. Lisa, do you even have a weakness? Oh my gosh. That's okay. I love that. All right, you two, we've got a love fest going on here. We're moving on. I love it. I love it. Oh, Candy, that worked for you too. Asking about a behavior at home. Yes, that definitely opens up that two-way dialogue. You're taking in what they experience at home. Our district uses only one platform. Oh, that's wonderful. And I imagine there probably will be more districts, if they haven't already followed suit with that will do that, because we now have such an overabundance of them. So, okay, great. Thank you for sharing, ladies. All right, we are going to jump in to some really quick, like 5-minute breakout rooms. I'm just going to randomly sort you out into 3 different rooms. I'm going to actually copy and paste these into the chat so you'll be able to see them. So keeping those 4 pillars in mind, just visit with the few people that are in your breakout room. Let me drop these in real fast if I can. Okay, there we go. Good. That's the scenario that you're going to be dealing with. Think about using those, applying those 4 pillars. How would you deal with each of these scenarios? Just come up with something, and then maybe choose one person to share out when we come back very briefly, and then we'll move on into something else. So let me sort you out. I feel like I'm learning so many things today. Okay.
Lori, you can share the screen that's on here. You can share that when you send us into breakout rooms. If you click share screen and then click the little box.
I thought I probably could, but I wasn't sure how. So I was like, I'm just going to put it in the chat. But I want to learn how to do that. Okay. All right. So we are going to. Okay, here we go. We'll do about 5 minutes and I'll pull you back.
And so, Rory, now that your breakout rooms are open, you just click share screen. And then over to the far right, you'll see a box that says share to breakout rooms. You'll just click that.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, are my breakout rooms open? Are people
Yeah,
going
I'm about to leave and go. Yeah.
Okay, don't leave yet. Don't leave
Okay.
yet. Oh, I see. I can see them. Okay, I can see them moving. Okay, now go up to where my share is again, up at the top.
Just click on share screen. And when you click on that, over on the right-hand side, you'll see a little
Yes.
box that says share to breakout.
What would you, no.
Are you
Oh, yeah,
on?
there it is. I got it. I got it. Sorry. Didn't see it. Okay. Okay. Now it should be in your breakout room.
All right, I'm gonna head in.
Okay, yay. Now I got to figure out how to get everybody back when we're done. Don't leave me yet, Lisa. More.
You should just have to close breakout rooms.
I see that. If I go to breakout rooms, close all rooms, and it'll pull them back. Okay, cool.
It actually, I think usually when you click that, I'm gonna get my lunch.
Okay, good. Am I doing okay?
I haven't been in all of them because I was
Okay.
the math situation, but well, not
Okay.
dealing. We just were talking to the math screeners. But usually when you close, it'll give them like a minute, and sometimes
Yes.
say 60 seconds.
Okay,
How is it
perfect.
going? I mean, do you think it's? I haven't.
I'm-
Sorry, I was going to listen and then.
Oh, it's fine. It feels great. I feel like I'm just talking and sharing information. So, and that's what I wanted it to be, like just casual lunch, and we're just having a great conversation. And it really cheered me up that people actually responded in the chat. I was like, they're listening. This is good. That's always helpful. All right, I'm gonna give them about 3 more minutes. It's a lot of things to work. Christy was going to do a lot of it, and I said, let me try, because I really want to learn how to master this where I feel like I can do it and not get so frustrated.
Well, but it is tricky to present by yourself and
Yes.
chat and breakout rooms.
You definitely couldn't do it
done.
unless you had more than one screen. Having 3 screens is helpful. I've got my screen, I've got my notes, and I've got the chat on a different one. So when I close all the rooms, it'll automatically stop sharing that screen and just come back to where we're at here, right?
I think so.
The sharing. Okay. I think it will too.
I'm not sure though. Oh,
1, 2, 3. Got a decent turnout today. This is not bad at all. Great. They're talking. I can see now I know what people are talking about. You can see the little microphones moving so you can tell they're visiting.
Huh?
It's awesome. I love it. I love it. I got to keep track of the time too, because Lord, it's about halfway and I'm about halfway done. So, okay. All right, I think that's been 5 minutes. Surely that's enough to talk about those. Here we go. Darn, I liked that 5-minute break. All right, here we go. All right, looks like everybody's back in here. Okay, so let's take just a couple of minutes to share what you discussed as you pop back in here. Hopefully you remembered that someone brave is going to volunteer to share with us. Is there somebody back from breakout room 1 that could share that first one? Breakout room 1 was a parent emails you at 10 p.m. asking why their child got a B- on a project. So if someone from breakout room 1 could share.
We just kind of decided we would wait and respond to that, the next day. And so we would definitely, and that communication again would be, very clear and all those points you talked about.
Okay. Do you know, did you talk about anything specific you might say to that parent when you did email back the following morning?
Well, we just, we would just I mean, not everybody, we just talked about how, I'm not even awake at 10 o'clock at night.
There you
So,
go.
it's like I would just say, oh, I just got your message, and I might respond at 5 o'clock in the morning and send it. But we use Parent Square, so you have it sick when a parent sends a message, you set up office hours, and it'll say whether or not they're not receiving messages until 8 o'clock or whatever, and it just keeps it so we respond, as quickly as, we can, but I can send the message and they may not, it works on their end too. So,
Sure. So the
yeah.
platform that you guys
Yes.
use sets the
Yes.
boundaries for you,
Yes.
which is great.
So,
That's fantastic.
yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, breakout room 2. A parent approaches you at pickup saying their child claims that you hate them. What are you going to say? Somebody from room 2 would be willing to share?
I think that we decided that we would invite maybe the parent to come in and have a conversation with us about why their child feels that way. Maybe have another teacher come and take over for us, or see if they can meet as soon as we're done with pickup.
Okay,
Just have a visit about why.
I love that. All right, good job. All right, thanks, Monica. All right, breakout room 3. A parent requests daily behavior reports for their child. I'm pretty sure we probably all had that at one point or another with one or more students. I certainly did. Would anybody be willing to share from breakout room 3 what you guys discussed on that one?
I can. It was brought up where sending home like a behavior log pertaining to that particular student, if it was something that happened quite regularly. Also sending a message home in the daily log to, if it's a behavior that pops up every once in a while. And I also brought up that my school district has a Parent Square, just like someone in group 1 had. And if I have a parent that I'm not 100% sure that they're going to check the backpack, like most of my parents do, I send a message through Parent Square just kind of as a backup. So it's kind of like I have documentation to both ways through Parent Square and the daily log showing that I contacted the parent.
Okay, excellent. I think maybe in scenario 3.2, just that communication about maybe what specific behaviors are you hoping to track, and then we can work together and find some kind of a system that works for all of us, whether it be the tracking in the folder or a daily message, whatever works for you. But of course, you still have to set your boundaries because you don't want to be spending all your time sending that communication for one student, of course. So, okay, very good. Let's move on. Let's see where we're at. Let's talk about some digital communication practices. Goodness knows that is how our world revolves these days. So looking at some email guidelines, I would say set clear expectations about response time, maybe 24, 48 hours if it's a non-urgent matter. And that would be excluding weekends. If you choose to, you can choose how you do that. Just make sure that you're consistent and you honor that, whatever you tell them you're going to do. Maybe put information about this in your back to school communication and remind parents occasionally throughout the year. Sometimes they forget. When you do respond to an email, just make sure you have a very professional tone and a standard signature line with contact information, and also remember how you prefer to be communicated with. Do you prefer an email or the platform that the school wants, or are you using something separate? Pay attention to things like the subject line, a vague subject line, like just question about homework. Maybe try to make it a little bit more specific so it catches the parent's attention. Maybe a question about tonight's math assignment, page 42, something like that. So it's very specific. And just a tip, I feel like if an email bounces back and forth more than 3 times, stop, pick up the phone, just get down to it. Email can be terrible. You cannot hear, voice or tone. for complex conversations, things that get difficult, it can easily lead to misunderstanding because you cannot tell how the person is saying it. Same thing with the text. So if it continues to bounce back and forth, I would say just put a stop to it, nip it in the bud, pick up the phone and just do the phone call and figure it out from there. So so many classroom apps and platforms that we've been talking about. My gosh, some of them that I have never even heard of, the one y'all just talked about. Of course, there's Class Dojo, Remind, Seesaw, all the things, and so many new ones. Again, consistency is the key. If you say you're going to post a weekly update, post a weekly update. Try to balance academic content with maybe social content from your classroom. Parents love to see their child learning, but they also want to see that they're enjoying and they're happy and engaged in the classroom. So maybe balance that out. Always be mindful of privacy, FERPA. If a parent hasn't given consent for you to post anything, you want to be very respectful about that. Don't ever post identifiable information about other students, because everything that's there could be a screenshot and then shared. And just onboard your parents basically to what you're doing. You have to train them. You really do, especially if you're a teacher of a very young grade. Pre-K, kinder might be their first child in the school system, and you really have to teach them how to do these things. So you kind of serve as a parent to the parents sometimes in the earlier grades. For text messaging, I would say emergency use only. I mean, it's always up to you, and only if parents have opted in. Text messaging feels very immediate. It feels very personal, and it can kind of blur the boundaries between professional and personal sometimes. So make sure you adhere to your district or your site policy. But I feel like text messages can be iffy. And I was a text messenger back in the day, but I think I would do things differently now. We didn't have the platforms that we have now or the apps that we have now. So we were a lot more limited, I feel like, and that was sometimes the quickest way. And again, I think you have to look at what grade level you teach. Yvonne and I chatted about that the other day, my colleague who is also an early childhood specialist. And sometimes with the littles, parents require even a quicker answer or a quicker way to get to you. It's their first baby in school. They come to us when they're 3 years old and turn 4 very quickly. That's hard. So I think we were willing to adjust to that a little bit more than we might be. When I taught 3rd grade, that wasn't as necessary. So let's do another fun poll. I'm just curious. I want to see if this is still a thing. The poll is that, do you normally provide your personal cell phone number? And I know lots of you have these platforms that we've talked about, but do you ever provide your personal cell phone number? Whoops, I don't want that one. At the beginning of the year, yes, no, always, or would it be possible for particular students? Valerie has already said a hard no. All right, the poll should be up on your screen. I'll leave that up for just a second. So I think this is going to be very different from the way it used to be as well. Like I said, we don't have as many platforms. It's not as easy. It wasn't as easy then as it is now to avoid that situation. And I think there can be positives to it as long as you set boundaries. Okay. We've got a lot of hard no's. Yes, Candy, that is something we're going to talk about. A Google number, Google Voice, different platforms. Yes, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end that. So that's about where I thought it would be. Lisa said, I used to, but my last school changed procedures and we had to use Remind. Yes, and I feel like the school where I taught is the same thing, Lisa. I think it used to be fine, and I don't think it is now because they have these available platforms. So if you should, I mean, there's so many things now, you don't have to. There's ways to call from your cell phone, but the number stays hidden because you're going through that platform that the school uses. But it's still good to give parents some kind of a direct number to get to you if they can, especially with the younger students. If you do choose to share your number, I just I mean, obviously set those boundaries, make sure parents know, and don't let them abuse that. Your good thoughts with that, your graciousness with that. Don't let them be abusive of that. Yes, Diane says Parent Square provides a teacher a number. I cannot remember what they enacted right before I left Bridge Creek, but there is something like that there. We got a separate phone number. So, okay, let's talk about difficult conversations. I think we're all going to be stuck with one of those at some point if you haven't already been. I came across a kind of a framework that I thought was very interesting, and I think it could be very productive. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it. It's called the Listen Framework. And so we're just going to check through that real quick and show you what that's about. So let them share their concerns fully. That might be the hardest part, especially if a parent is upset or accusatory. It is very difficult. I am horrible at it. I try to interject because I'm worried and I want to stop things. But people feel the need to be heard before they can hear you. So do your best to not interrupt, don't defend, just listen. Let them share completely. I would inquire for clarification and detail. Ask them questions. Can you help me understand what you mean by that? What would you like to see happen? Just ask a few questions so you're clear. S would be summarize what you've heard. Give them the chance to listen back, correct any misunderstandings, anything you misheard. Just something like, so if I understand correctly, you're concerned about, and then repeat back, kind of like your students retelling a story for you. So when we get to T, we're talking about thinking together about solutions. This is where the collaboration happens. What ideas do you have? What's worked for you at home? Some of the ladies had shared when they inquired about a problem or how something was handled at home that really opened up communication. E would be establish next steps and a timeline. Be specific about who's going to do what and when, and then follow through with that. And then N would be notify about follow-up plans. So are you going to check back in? Hey, I'm going to email you next Friday. We're going to check in. How are we going to measure progress with this situation? I think it's a great framework that could help through some difficult conversations. There is a lot of text on this next screen, but it's just kind of a work through of a situation. If you had a parent come to you angry that their child isn't being challenged enough and bored in class, there is kind of a sample response of what might work if you use that listen framework. I can see you're really concerned about this. Tell me more. Maybe what does she say about the work she's doing? What kind of stuff does she enjoy doing? And the summarize is so important in this one. So this is what you're saying. She finishes her homework really quickly and then she complains that school is boring. So you're worried she's not being challenged. And then ask about ideas that they might have so you guys can work on something together. What has worked in previous grades? Talk about your next steps. In this one, it might be a good idea to say, let me actually assess her current level in math and reading, and then we can meet again to discuss. And then follow up, notify, email those results of the assessment, and we'll use that in our meeting and create a plan. So you can see how laying out this framework for yourself before you go into a difficult conversation, maybe planning out some of the responses. If you know ahead of time what it's going to be about, it might help with this. Or you could just look at the framework while you're in the middle of a difficult conversation and it could possibly guide you a little bit. So key phrases from that framework are those right there. Help me understand. What would success look like to you? I think a big one is let's work on this together, because that's what parents want to do. They want to collaborate. And it's just going to move, showing empathy. I think all of these phrases show empathy. And I think they help move the conversation from confrontation toward collaboration, which is the goal. So, okay. Let's talk about some proactive communication problems. What we would all like to do, prevent the problems before they start. I think that's what every teacher hopes for. Especially with difficult conversations, we would really like to prevent them before they happen. I think proactive communication helps build those strong relationships, which sometimes can stave off those difficult conversations. If you're talking about the beginning of the year, this is your chance to kind of set the tone for what the entire year is going to be like. Think about sending a communications preference survey to parents. Ask them, how do you like to be contacted? How often would you like updates? What are your biggest concerns about your child's education this year? What do I need to know about your child that might not be in their records? Ask them those things. Let them share things that are important to them. Maybe share a detailed expectations letter about your classroom, your academic expectations for your students, your communication expectations. Let them know when you'll send newsletters, how quickly you'll respond to the emails, what you believe constitutes an emergency. That's a big one. Think about creating, and I think a lot of teachers already do this, create an introductory letter that you maybe hand out on Meet the Teacher Night, or maybe your first parent open house or something like that. Maybe even think about doing something different. Maybe step it up and make a fun video that you can share with a QR code, and they can watch a short little video, kind of get a feel for your personality, your passion for what you do, why you enjoy teaching this grade level. And then open house seems to be something where we kind of just go through our procedures because we're just trying to get through so much. Maybe use that as an opportunity also. Share those procedures, but share your why. Why did you become a teacher? Why do you love teaching third grade? What are you going to do to help their child grow this year? Again, that's building those relationships right from the start. If you're talking about ongoing throughout the year, just continue to maintain that regular communication. Do the weekly or monthly newsletters, whatever works for you in your classroom. It helps reduce sometimes individual questions. We all know we have the parents who don't read any of those things that come home. And then you get bombarded with the emails asking what you just sent home in the folder to answer. But don't give up, keep trying. Try sharing in the newsletters, just not what you're doing, but why you're doing it. Like maybe instead of we're studying fractions this week, okay, we're studying fractions because understanding parts of a whole is essential for algebra later on and for everyday life, like cooking and budgeting, things like that. Send progress reports before report cards. Nobody likes surprises. If a parent has to wait until report card time and the grade's finalized, that's going to create an issue. Parents should know long before then that a child's struggling, so you can work together, have those difficult conversations. I would say celebrate the achievements proactively. Don't wait for conferences to share good news. Send something home positive, a quick email, a brief phone call, something on whatever platform you utilize would be great. And then, of course, give parents heads up about challenges that might be coming up. If you're teaching a grade level that you have to teach long division, and historically, when you get to that unit in the school year, it is difficult for your students. Maybe prep your parents for that. Send home a separate newsletter or just a note or something in the newsletter with some tips. This is what's coming up. Here's some things you can do at home to support your student and maybe make that unit a little bit better for everybody. When concerns do arise, those like everything else in life, the quicker you intervene, the earlier you intervene, the better chance you have of resolving them before we get to the really hard conversations. Don't wait and hope that if you ignore it, it will resolve itself. I can imagine everybody has probably done that at one point or another, even though it's not the right thing to do. You just hope and pray it will iron itself out. But those early intervention conversations are so much easier than, say, like a crisis conversation when everything's falling apart. So continue to document any strategies that you do try so you can share those. Create a timeline and share for improvement, and just continue those regular check-ins throughout the year. Okay. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit about some cultural sensitivity and just honoring all families. Our world is very different now. Cultural awareness is almost imperative in any classroom. A multicultural classroom is now pretty much the norm in most districts, and effective communication requires understanding and honoring that the different languages, the different cultural perspectives. I would say first consider the language barrier. Not all parents are comfortable communicating in English, even if they're fluent. They might prefer more difficult or emotional conversations in their native language. So know if there are translation services available in your school. If not, maybe a parent or a relative, maybe another teacher in your building, someone can come in and maybe translate. Google Translate is great for basic conversations, but if it's something really important, I would say striving to get a translator for that family would be worth the investment. And think about cultural approaches to authority in school. In some cultures, questioning a teacher is seen as disrespectful. Some cultures, making eye contact with adults is seen as disrespectful. So even if parents have concerns, depending on their culture, they might not even speak up about that. They might not voice those concerns. In other cultures, parents see themselves as equals with you, or as we talked about earlier, maybe the authority and you're supposed to defer to them. So you've got to kind of figure out which way it's going to go with your families. Think about different family structures. Don't always assume that the person picking up or dropping off the child is necessarily the decision maker. We have very mixed families these days. Not always the parents are doing the caregiving. Lots of grandparents are raising their grandchildren. Those generational differences can be a game changer. Grandparents are not going to understand the same way that a younger generation might. They did things differently. So be maybe sensitive to that and just try to be aware of who needs to be in important meetings, who needs to be in important conversations, because it may be very different from what you expect. Also be aware of economic factors affecting participation. Not all parents can attend a daytime conference. Not all parents can volunteer in classrooms, and it certainly doesn't mean that they don't care. It probably means or could mean that they're working multiple jobs to support their family. Times are tough right now. People have to do what they have to do. So consider offering flexible communication options where they have choices, what works with their schedule. Practices that help just regularly, just multiple communication, translation, flexible meeting times, respect for cultural values, and avoid assumptions. Some families value different things. You might have a family that values or prioritizes academic achievement. You might have another one that's more about social emotional development. And then other families are literally just worried about survival and basic needs. So their approach to their participation in school and their approach to how they interact with you is going to be greatly affected by that. So ask some questions. What would you like me to know about your family? What are your hopes for your child this year? How can I support you in supporting your child? And I would say overall, just try to remember that being culturally sensitive doesn't necessarily mean you're walking on eggshells or treating people differently. It's just recognizing that your way or my way of communicating and thinking about education or their child's educational journey isn't the only way. And that being flexible enough to meet families where they are will make a huge, huge difference. All right, we're quickly running out of time. I've just got a few things left to share with you. Let's talk about boundaries. Oh my goodness. Time boundaries. Oh my. Boundaries are hard for teachers. We give and we give and we give of ourselves until sometimes we have nothing left. But good boundaries improve your relationships with parents. They create clarity and consistency. Everybody needs a healthy work-life balance. Communicate your available hours. Let them know when you check emails, when you respond. Communicate those response time expectations, your feelings about weekends and holidays, and just set those clear policies. And remember that you have a right to personal time. You still have a life outside of school, which is hard sometimes. I was horrible at that. Professional boundaries are equally important. Stay in your lane. So many parents come to us with problems. You're an educator, not a therapist, not a social worker or family counselor. Be sure when they bring a concern to you that's outside of your scope that you refer them on to someone who can help them, maybe the school counselor. Maintain confidentiality, always consider FERPA. Don't share information about other students, even positive information. Document all your interactions, whether they are positive or negative. Think about keeping doors open to your classrooms when you're having those conversations. If a parent is consistently aggressive, makes inappropriate demands, of course, share that with your document and then share with your administrator to get support and guidance on that. And I threw that last one in there, I would say, and I, again, was horrible at this because we didn't have as many boundaries, but try to avoid friending students on social media and even parents. It depends on how your district feels about that, but that can definitely get uncomfortable. You can always make your social media accounts private so they can't see those things. And then some more for your personal boundaries, just try to separate your work and personal communication. We all love social media. I love sharing things, but definitely consider what the level of what you share and if you do need to make your account private. And just remember that boundaries aren't mean or unprofessional, because that's what we sometimes feel like. They're necessary for maintaining positive relationships and protecting your well-being. And it makes you more present and effective when you are available. Building those long-term relationships is something that we want to do. Start with positives. Your first contact should always be a positive one with the family. It kind of sets the tone. Show genuine interest in the child as a person. Ask about their interests and hobbies. If you are lucky enough to be able to maybe attend something outside of the school day, a lot of teachers do that. But I always tell people, don't feel guilty if you can't. Not everyone can do that in their life. I was able to because when I started teaching, my kids were grown and gone. So I had freedom in the evenings. That's not always possible. Try to remember personal details about a family. Invest in your families. If they mention that they're going through something, horrible, a death, a divorce, maybe check in with them sometime and just ask, how are you doing? Learn from their insights. And celebrate together, make them feel like they're partners in any achievement that happens in the classroom. We'll just kind of go past that one because we really need to start wrapping things up. Some helpful resources and tools would be maybe a communication tracking template, parent survey, and maybe create an email template for common situations. And then that difficult conversation planning sheet using like the listen framework. You can find a lot of these things already pre-made. If you use a commercial planner, the big beautiful planners, they usually come with a communication tracking pages within there. Lots of these things are found on teacher websites or blogs. You might even have some that you could get from your district they use. And if not, create something that works for you and then share it with your colleagues. Maybe you end up coming up with something that just fits perfectly for your needs. But don't be afraid to utilize these things to help you kind of stay focused. Some professional development as far as furthering your skills, your competence level with parent communication is there's plenty of books to read. There's lots of free online courses and webinars. You could talk about it in your PLCs, maybe create a community of practice. And then, of course, don't ever pass up an opportunity either to be mentored or be a mentor to someone. We talk about pairing our students up with more capable others. There are also more capable adult others. So if you teach with someone who you feel like is really good at parent communication, ask them, share your thoughts, share your ideas with me, show me your ways, that kind of thing. So I think that is about the end of the information I wanted to share with you. I'm not going to actually launch this poll, but you might drop into the chat. The strategies that I shared today, is there one that kind of resonated with you that you might like to try to use in the coming year? If you have that idea and you're willing to share, drop that into the chat. I think any of them would be great to just try one, not everything. And then I would say, are there anybody want to share anything, any questions or final thoughts about anything? Okay, Candy said the listen. I really like the listen framework as well. I wished I had that. I think that could have been some good guidance for myself. I think I always did a parent newsletter. I think the pillars of communication would have been a good guidance to building that foundation. So, okay, the parent communication preference survey. I love that too, Laura. Good. Well, I hope you're able to use some of those things that I shared today. Just a few reminders I'll leave you with. It's a work in progress, so it doesn't have to be perfect immediately. Every interaction is a chance to improve and get better. Remember that every parent wants what's best for their child, even when they're frustrating and demanding. It's usually coming from a place of love. You're building bridges, not walls. So every positive interaction creates that connection. And small, consistent efforts make big differences. You do not need to go back today and try to implement 5 new strategies. Just pick 1 or 2 and see if they work this year and adjust as you go. Really quick, if you do not already receive our early childhood newsletter, you can scan that QR code with your phone if you're able, and it will take you to the last newsletter that was sent out. And if you scroll to the bottom, you can drop your email in and it'll open up a list of all of the newsletters that come out from OSDE, and you can scroll down and find the early childhood. I highly recommend that you do that. We send out a lot of great information each month. The last one was June and July for the summer, so August will be coming. One of the things that we will be sharing in that August newsletter, and there's also where you can find us on Facebook, #OKEarlyEd. We share a lot of great information there as well. One of the things that we'll be sharing in the August newsletter is the registration links for our fall regionals. These are specifically the early childhood dates, but there will be workshops from every one of our content areas. Yvonne will be doing the early childhood sessions. It'll be a 3-hour intense hands-on workshop about play-based learning, purposeful play in the classroom. And I will share those links or the registration links with you in that upcoming newsletter. So be sure and look out for that. Again, I'm here to help. If you should need anything, feel free to reach out by email or phone. If I don't have an answer, I promise I'll get it and get back to you. And I think that's it. If you have just a moment before you log off, one more QR code for you, because we live and die by QR codes around here. But if you would scan that and just give me a little bit of feedback on today's session, and it helps us know what you like, what you don't like, and what we need to do for future webinars or lunch and learns. We do have one more lunch and learn session coming up. As I said, it's I think it is student engagement coming up in a week or so. So if you're registered for all the others, you'll have the same link for that. And then we will be starting August 5th, Ed Chats, which will be similar to our lunch and learns. There'll be one at 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock each month that we have one. We'll have different topics that we can discuss with you, and you just hop in on Zoom and listen and learn. We collaborate, and that's it. Christy, thank you.
Also, Rory, this link will give you your certificate for your participation today.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all very much for joining me today. I enjoyed visiting with you and appreciate your time, and hope that it was helpful for you, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you.